Hey guys, so starting this vlog off where basically I'm getting ready for the day. It is currently Sunday. I am going out with my parents today because my mom's birthday is next Saturday and I'm not going to really be able to be with her very much on her birthday because I have to work on Saturdays. So basically today my dad and I are taking her out to do a little bit of birthday shopping a little early just because I'm not going to really be able to see her. And then we're going to be out by me, so my dad figured it'd just be a good opportunity for us to go get lunch, stuff like that. So I'm kind of just loosely getting ready. I'm not really doing much with myself other than just trying to get my contacts in and wash my face and put on my sunscreen basically, because being an esthetician girly now, basically by working in an esthetician office, that's super important. I have a sunscreen that I really like that I've been using that also kind of works as a foundation because it's a tinted sunscreen, and so I don't have to like constantly use like other sunscreens. I don't even really have to use foundation really so much anymore. But first and foremost, what I need to do is put my contacts in. But I figured I'd start this vlog because this is probably the closest opportunity I'm going to get for a minute. And I just realized I need to get new contacts because the last time I used mine, they were very drying because they were not supposed to be used. I am working on book 2 of the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin right now. It is called The Broken Kingdoms. I am about 50 pages into this. I have not really had very much luck when it comes to reading recently. My energy level has been pretty low. You guys may have seen recently my video where I talked about, you know, kind of a little update on me, how things have been going. And since that video's come out, I really appreciate a lot of the well wishes and the, you know, really kind messages you guys sent my way in that video. It was really nice. I have a really hard time sometimes when I have people that like send me well wishes and stuff, because like I know it's really nice, but like my brain is very dumb, so I feel like I don't deserve it sometimes. Even though I am the one that takes care of everybody else, and so therefore should also take care of myself. That doesn't usually happen. So I've been trying to sift through my thoughts of how the last like handful of days, especially since I posted that video, has been. And truth be told, like I'm in a better place than I ever used to be, truthfully. But I don't know, there's a lot of like heavy stuff I think that's been just really on my mind that I'm going through with therapy, and like it's really kind of impacting me. It's just like I have a lot of trauma I've realized in this last year, is that I have a lot of trauma from my life that I only recently have been really diving into, and I think that now a lot of it is kind of catching up with me. And so I feel like that's really bogging down my mental health right now. And I feel like that is what has been, you know, really triggering me, really, to put it in a more opportune word, I guess. I just have like a lot of stuff that I've gone through in my life with previous friendships and relationships. And it's just kind of one of those things where they still haunt me to this day, and like just how people treated me, and that's partially why I don't feel like sometimes I deserve the nice kind words from people, just because I constantly feel like I'm not worth that, and that tends to be when I start spiraling. And I'm not necessarily spiraling right now, thank goodness, but I definitely have my moments where when things are going really well for a long period of time, like they have been, I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I feel like that I kind of jinxed myself in a sense, and now the other shoe dropping is that my mental health has now tanked. So it is what it is. It happens, you know, nothing is ever linear. It's always peaks and valleys, like I said in my video previously. But at this point also, the other thing is that I also did just post as of yesterday from this video, the Battle of the Bookish announcement, which that is the one thing I am really excited about. I always get really excited for the Battle of the Bookish rounds because they're always so much fun. I'm very excited to see how this round goes, and I think that it's going to be a really fun time, especially with the Pixar theme. But anyway, let me get to my actual point of this video, which is the Broken Kingdoms. So basically this is, I would say more so far, a companion novel to the 100,000 Kingdoms, because what it seemed like from what I saw of the synopsis when I did the live show for the 100,000 Kingdoms is that this book is more so dealing with a different character than anybody we've seen previously. And what it seems like is that this story takes place like sometime after the 100,000 Kingdoms. So in the prologue of the Broken Kingdoms, there is a character that we learned. Her name's Ori. Now, Ori is basically starts off like in the prologue, she's a young girl, like very, very young. And she ends up basically like moving away, I guess. She's a blind girl, so she can kind of see like shadows basically more so than anything. She can't really see faces. But like she can obviously recognize like the silhouettes and shadows of people, but she also is able to see more so the magic that is in this world, especially when coming across godlings or god characters that we know about from the 100,000 Kingdoms. Like, we know in this world there are godlings, there are who are basically like children of gods in a sense. We know that there is this god structure involved based on what happens in the 100,000 Kingdoms. Basically what happens is in the prologue you learn about Ori as a child and how 10 years go by and she's living in this part of the kingdom where she is selling art that she makes. She is a blind artist and is actually able to make really good sculptures and paintings, even being blind. And so what happens is that she one day, when working at this like, I want to say it's like Artist's Row, basically. It's like a merchant area where like, you know, people can set up their wares. There is a young woman who looks to be murdered, and apparently this woman is a well-known godling or child of a god, and supposedly they are not able to be killed unless it is by other godlings or, you know, like either their parents or one of their siblings if their sibling is strong enough. And so obviously when she finds this godling dead, that spews a whole like investigation going on. And then you also learn when she goes home that night after going through that, you learn that she actually has a godling in her care. She had basically found this man who was homeless. He doesn't really speak at all. And she kind of just took him in a few months prior, and they just, you know, they're really good friends now. Like, they haven't exactly become lovers in a sense, but she's not, you know, opposed to that if that's the case. They've laid with godlings before. It's nothing new to her. But this person in particular has a very different kind of energy. She doesn't really know much about him because he doesn't speak to her. She doesn't even know his name, really. And it's been like 3 months since he's been living with her. And then when all this stuff happens, basically he is then taken away because he attacks one of the priests who are kind of this like part of governmental force within this world. And so when he attacks one of them, he is sent to prison, and Ori basically has to find a way to get him back and protect him because they think that it's possible he may have something to do with it. And according to the synopsis that is listed on Goodreads, it does seem like somehow this man is involved in whatever is happening because there's going to be more godlings that are going to be killed according to the synopsis, and they're trying to figure out who it is. And for some reason, this guy they think has something to do with it because partially they don't know who he is, but they know he's a godling, and they're trying to figure out what the hell happened. So that's pretty much all we've really learned in terms of the first 50 pages, and that's mainly the synopsis of the story right there. So Ori has another godling character that she's been lovers with in the past that she kind of enlists his help as kind of a favor, basically, because he essentially like dumped her, and I guess said that because of the way that it happened, like, he is indebted to her in some way. So far, I am liking this a lot more than I feel like I did the 100,000 Kingdoms. I think that the 100,000 Kingdoms was a little too fast to start off for me, and this one had a little bit slower of a start to everything. I mean, obviously, like, within the first chapter, we find a dead godling, and everything kind of ensues from there. But for some reason that didn't feel as, you know, crazy as all of a sudden the princess in the first book had to be whisked away literally almost on page 1 and not knowing what the hell was going on. Anyway, I'm gonna go finish getting ready, and I will talk to you guys later when I actually have a little bit more updates. So far, I'm enjoying the Broken Kingdoms. I think it's definitely so far a lot better than how I originally thought the 100,000 Kingdoms was, but still yet to see whether or not it's going to end up being better. I also feel like this one is going to be more plot heavy than the 100,000 Kingdoms was, where 100,000 Kingdoms was a lot more of the lore building, I think, of the gods themselves, and that really slowed it down for me. So I feel like if the Broken Kingdoms continues on more of this plot, especially of developing how the godlings are being killed, who's killing them, and why, I feel like that is going to be something I'm going to enjoy more than the first book. So we shall see.
Before I get too far, I do want to introduce this little man right here. This little man. This is Doug. This is our new puppy. And then there's an Oscar, who has been very, very good at taking care of the little boy. Yeah, he just woke up from a very, very big nap. So we're going to go potty real quick. And then I'm going to talk about The Broken Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. Oh, big chomps. Big chomps. Okay. Do you boys want to go outside? I'll go potty. Let's go outside.
I have really struggled this entire month with reading really anything. I had a really slumpy month, quite honestly. And I only have like 3 books of my TBR basically left by the time I started this. I still have 1 more book I absolutely need to read, and it's for the Wheel of D20. I have 1 book for another readathon. Also, I apologize if I get really sniffly in this clip. I think that the increased pet dander that is in my home now because of having Doug is making my allergies go really, really haywire. Plus it's getting to that nicer time of the year, like right before the summer fully hits, where everything's opening up, and so my allergies are just going absolute apeshit right now. But today I finally finished, after probably going on 2, maybe 3 weeks almost of this month, finally finished The Broken Kingdoms. This is book 2 in the Inheritance trilogy, which if you haven't read the first one, I highly suggest doing so. Mostly because there is some stuff involved in this book that deals with some of the things that we learn about in the first book. But one thing I will say that I appreciate about this series is that it's so far, at least between how the first and the second book are, is it's more of a companion series. It's in the same world, it involves a lot of the same characters, like they show up at different points, but this is set 10 years after the 100,000 Kingdoms and follows a completely new character. This follows the character of Ori Shoth, who is a young woman in this place that used to be called Sky, is now called Shadow, and essentially she is a blind artist, and she had moved to Shadow basically after leaving home when her father was killed in this really horrific accident, and she doesn't really know what happened, but it fast forwards from her father's death to 10 years later, and you learn that she was involved with a godling, or basically the child of a god at one point in time, was in love with him. They had a very serious relationship, but he broke it off, and it left her very heartbroken. And at some point in that time of the breakup, she finds this man who is sleeping on the streets, homeless. Ori can't really see people, but she can see magic basically, and with this person she sees magic within them, meaning to her that this person is very likely another godling that she's never known about. But the problem is this man is mute. He does not speak really at all, and so she doesn't even know his name, and he's been living with her at the point of the story for about 3 months. And basically she starts to call him Shiny, and that's how we know him in the beginning of this book. Now, what we learn is that the biggest thing going on within this is that godlings are being killed. Ori finds the body of a very well-known godling that a lot of people pray to in this world, and it starts this domino effect where then Ori's life is in danger because the ruling order in this world, which is basically like a religious order called the Temple of Tempest or something like that, basically they are starting to pin the murder on her somehow. They don't understand why. She doesn't understand why she's just being framed for this godling's murder. And then when Shiny gets involved, it spews this whole thing where Ori finds out who exactly Shiny is, and it really plays into a lot of the things that we learn about in book 1. Basically, the end of book 1, we find out that Tempest, who is like the all-father in this world in terms of the god structure, he was punished in the end of the first book, where he was punished to be a human because of all the things he had done, which included killing this woman who he supposedly loved, was like the mother of many of the gods in this world. Basically, he is sentenced to live a long time as a human to essentially understand why they are angry with him in some capacity. They believe that being a human is going to teach him why it is that they are angry with him. And it turns out that Tempest is Shiny. Shiny is Tempest. He is the humanized version of the god that is the all-father in this world. And that then comes into play very well with the fact that there's kind of a budding relationship going on between Ori and Shiny. It's not like really set in stone till later in the book, and even that has some pretty dire consequences for Ori specifically. But essentially this whole book is learning about the conspiracy that is going on in this world, because not only is there this ruling order that is, you know, slated to Tempest as, you know, the ruler, there is also a cult that is involved in this world that is looking to kill the godlings, and this is a group basically comprised of demons. And in this book, we then find out that Ori is actually part demon, which is why she is able to see things. She's able to see magic in other people with even being blind, and that was something she had inherited from her father. And you understand that basically when Tempest came down from power and was forced into being a human, that was also the time frame where Ori's father was killed. So there's a lot of things that kind of tie in together. There's a lot of things that really like line up very, very easily in this story. And by the end of this, we learn that Ori is even still in danger because of the fact that when she becomes involved with Tempest or Shiny, there's some like consequences with that bring back some characters we've seen in book 1. And this was a book that really, I think, just was more emotionally impactful than book 1. And especially the very end of this, we find out that Ori gets pregnant by Tempest. And the whole story is being told as while the baby is still in utero. Like, Ori is telling her unborn child this entire story of her and of meeting Tempest and their story and their love and the things that he went through, saying that everything he did in the first book was good. It's not trying to justify a lot of the things that he did. I think that this story, if anything, is kind of that idea of no matter who you are, God or human or demon, every person deserves a second chance. And I think that this story really exemplifies Ori's ability to understand that everyone deserves a second chance. She showcases that in a lot of ways in terms of her relationship with this other godling that she had previously. There was this inkling that they were going to rekindle their relationship, and she was willing to put aside her hurt feelings because of what happened to be with him. So this was actually like really interesting. I think that I enjoyed this one a lot more than I did the first book. I think mostly because I just feel like I connected a little bit better with Ori, which when reading a lot of reviews on this one in particular, I did see that that was a pretty common note, was that a lot of people felt that they could relate more to Ori. Yena in the first book was not super interesting to me, and that book in particular was more very info dumpy because it was focusing a lot on the story of the gods and like how all that came to be. And this one more so was actually plot based, which I really, really liked. And I liked the idea of there being kind of this cult involved. I liked the fact that Tempest kind of got a bit of a redemption because, like I said, I feel like this was supposed to be more of that idea of second chance because he had a lot of things come up at the end of the 100,000 Kingdoms that really showcased how kind of a bad guy he was, or like at least just a really awful guy. And here he doesn't get fully redeemed per se, but he does get some kind of redemption through the eyes of a character who sees him for something other than being the god, like the all-father kind of god. Like, I think part of the thing with this was that Ori saw him in a way that very few people or gods would have ever seen him, and it was in a more raw state, really, a lot of times, because she just knew him to be a godling at first, not realizing he was the all-father god. And so that really, like, changed her perception of him when she found that out. But previously, she didn't think of him as anything other than another godling. And so her treatment of him and how she viewed him as an individual was a very different perception, I think, than many people in this series and this world would have of him. So I think that that really plays again into that idea of second chances, and really from the perspective of somebody who doesn't really know much about him, and then as she's learning more about him is starting to kind of see where some people are maybe right, but then how other people are really, really wrong about Tempest in particular. So I liked this a lot. I definitely feel like it wasn't perfect for me. I did feel like I got a little lost in some of the connections. Like I had to go look up a little bit of the connecting factors, especially toward like the end of this. But really enjoyed this one a lot more than I did book 1. So I will say this did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. So the live show for the Broken Kingdoms is going to be the first weekend of June, which is going to be June 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My hope is that Bree is going to be able to join me on that live show. She has said that she would be really interested in especially talking about this one out of the Inheritance trilogy. And then we will be moving into book 3 in the course of June and having that live show in July. So if you have not at this point joined in on the NK Jemisin read-along, I do hope that you will join us because we are getting to the end of a series, but in July we might be picking up something a little different. I have to look back at my schedule, but at the very least, the second half of this year is going to be getting into a little bit less known works of NK, where like at the end of the year we're going to be especially getting into her newest series, but we're going to be getting into some of her less revered work here in the second half of the year, because I really wanted to focus on the fact that NK has not only written really great things with the Broken Earth trilogy and the Inheritance trilogy, but also has a lot of other books that most people don't really know much about, so because they are looked at very differently compared to her normal stuff. So without further ado, that is going to be it for this video as the dogs get to start playing. So I'm gonna go, but thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. Let me know what your guys' thoughts were on the Broken Kingdoms if you did read it with me, and I hope to see you all at the live show on June 3rd. So thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!